Imagine you are standing in line at a physical grocery store. You've got your cart, you're ready to pay, and right there next to the register is that, well, that carefully engineered rack.
Oh,
You know the exact one. It's got the mints, the batteries, chapstick, maybe like a glossy magazine you'd never buy otherwise.
right, exactly.
It's entirely predictable, right? But I mean, it works. Now, take that exact same scenario and put it on the internet. Suddenly, store owners aren't just, offering you a pack of gum. They are throwing entire digital aisles at you while you're desperately trying to just tap in your Apple Pay or your credit card number.
Yeah, it can get really messy.
Messy and honestly just a little overwhelming. Fast. So today, we have our hands on a highly detailed, 20-minute tactical guide from June 2026. It's titled Shopify Cross-Sell: Where to Put It, What Works, and How to Measure It Honestly.
What's fascinating here is that historically, e-commerce has relied heavily on guesswork for this stuff. I mean, store owners would just throw a bunch of recommendation widgets on their site and just cross their fingers, basically.
Just hoping for the best.
Right. But this 2026 playbook strips all that away. It actually gives us the math and the underlying mechanics of what moves the needle, without alienating the shopper.
Yeah, and that's exactly why we are digging into it today. Our mission for this deep dive is to decode how online stores can actually increase their average order value, so their AOV, without, annoying you, the customer, or falling for fake inflated revenue numbers on the back end, which apparently is a huge problem.
A massive problem, yeah.
So whether you are, say, an e-commerce founder trying to optimize your Shopify store, maybe a marketer prepping for a major strategy meeting, or just someone who's intensely curious about the invisible psychology behind why you click add to cart, I really think this breakdown is going to completely change how you view the whole digital checkout process.
I totally agree. It really reorients your perspective. Because, before a business can strategically place an offer on a storefront, they have to actually understand what they're offering.
Right.
Confusing the basic mechanics is the very first way businesses fail at this. And the source is adamant, incredibly adamant about getting these definitions right from the start.
Okay, let's unpack this with a mental model the source provides, which I absolutely love, because it makes it so simple.
Yeah, the fast food one.
Exactly. Think of it like ordering fast food. So if you are buying a burger, a cross-sell is adding fries. It's a complement to the main item.
Right.
An upsell, on the other hand, is like convincing you to trade up to a double patty. You're upgrading the main item itself, usually replacing your original choice.
Yeah.
And a bundle. That's buying the combo meal. It's a single item in the catalog, usually with a slight discount baked into it.
And, that distinction might sound like pure semantics to some people. Like, who cares what we call it?
Right. It's all just selling more stuff.
Exactly. But here is the technical reason why it matters so much. On a platform like Shopify, a cross-sell, an upsell, and a bundle, they all live in completely different places in the platform's back-end architecture.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they use entirely different code mechanics. So if a store owner confuses these terms, they end up installing 3 different third-party apps just to try and execute one simple strategy.
And that's where the site just breaks down, I assume.
Completely.
You end up with this 3-headed monster of e-commerce where the apps are literally fighting each other in the site's code.
Yeah, they overlap, they double count the revenue, and they create this chaotic, pop-up filled user experience that just drives you away.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody wants a storefront that feels like a spammy billboard.
Exactly. And beyond the technical architecture, the guide establishes this golden rule of fit, which is cross-selling is simply not a universal strategy.
Wait, really? It's not for everyone. Not at all. If you are listening to this and your store only sells a single hero product, or if you sell low-margin commodities where the shipping costs more than the item itself,
right,
forcing a cross-sell recommender app into the mix actually destroys your business value.
Because the unit economics just don't make sense.
Exactly.
Like if I'm selling a $5 mug and it costs me $6 to ship it, getting someone to buy a second mug doesn't help if the app fee and the shipping just eat the entire margin anyway.
Precisely. You have to know the realities of your catalog. If your margins are tight or your volume is low, you start with bundles to increase the upfront value, or you rely on simple post-purchase offers.
You don't just blindly deploy some complex algorithmic recommendation engine.
No, absolutely not. That's a huge mistake.
Okay, so let's say our hypothetical store owner does their homework. They map out their catalog. They identify a true complementary cross-sell.
Like the fries to the burger.
Exactly, the fries to the burger. The very next problem they run into is the real estate. Like, where does this offer actually live on the screen? And I have to push back on the source a little bit here
Go.
because I see those inline checkout add-ons all over social media. You know, the ones right in the middle of the checkout page, usually a little checkbox offering like shipping protection or a mystery item.
Oh, sure.
They look amazing in those demo videos. I mean, shouldn't that be the absolute priority for a store?
It's a very common assumption because visually, I mean, you're right, they look incredibly slick. But the reality of implementing them is so much harsher. Well, first of all, checkout cross-sells usually require Shopify Plus, which is the really expensive enterprise tier of the platform.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and they demand serious custom engineering to implement correctly without just breaking the page entirely. And most importantly, if they're implemented even slightly poorly, they add cognitive friction to the single most critical moment of the shopping journey.
Okay, I see where you're going with this. You risk losing like a $100 order because the customer got confused or distracted by a $5 pair of socks right at the finish line.
That is the exact risk. You're gambling your core conversion rate, which is wild.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
Right. That's why the source provides an actual hierarchy of impact, ranked by ease of implementation and return on investment. The real priority list goes like this. Post-purchase is number 1.
Okay.
Then the cart drawer. Then email. Then the product detail page, or PDP. And only at the very, very bottom is checkout.
Wow. I really want to zero in on that number 1 spot, though, the post-purchase one-click upsell. Because as a shopper, this feels like magic to me. This is the one that happens after the payment is complete, but before you see the final thank you page, right?
Yeah, it is arguably the most elegant mechanic in modern e-commerce right now.
Why is that?
Because the payment has already been processed. The app tokenizes the credit card. It securely holds that payment authorization open for just a couple of minutes. So when the shopper sees the offer for the socks, they don't have to re-enter their shipping address.
Or their security code or anything.
Right. It is a literal one-click addition.
It really is the digital equivalent of that grocery store candy rack we talked about, but supercharged.
Exactly.
Because there is absolutely zero risk to the main cart. The original transaction is fully locked in. If they close the window, you still sold the main item.
Yep, the money's already in the bank,
Yeah.
essentially.
And the guide notes that attach rates, you know, the percentage of people who actually accept the offer are a solid 5 to 10% for post-purchase.
Which is huge.
Yeah. But then, right behind that is the email placement, which the source calls out as this hidden secret.
Yes, and this comes down to really understanding customer psychology and acquisition costs. The warmest audience you will ever have is a customer who literally just bought from you. Their trust in your brand is at its absolute peak. The source highlights that sending a simple replenishment or complimentary product email on day 7 often completely outperforms any fancy storefront widget.
Because the customer discovery cost is already paid. Like, you're not spending Google or Meta ad dollars to get them to your site anymore.
Exactly.
You're just sending a virtually free email to someone who already has your product sitting on their kitchen counter.
Yeah, the margin on that day 7 email sale is significantly higher than a storefront sale because of exactly that.
Okay, so the real estate is chosen. The offer is placed in the cart drawer or in that day 7 email. Now we hit the next big fork in the road. Who decides which product to show? A human or a machine?
This is where it gets highly debated.
Right, because in 2026, my immediate assumption is that an AI or an algorithmic recommender is just, well, inherently better. It crunches the data, it finds the patterns, boom, perfectly optimized shopping experience.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of how tech is marketed right now, it's completely understandable why you'd assume that.
Yeah.
I mean, AI is pitched as the solution to literally everything.
Yeah, exactly.
But the source introduces a crucial mathematical threshold rule here. Machine learning algorithms don't just magically know what looks good together.
Yeah.
They need massive amounts of overlapping data to learn anything.
Right, they need to see that out of, say, 10,000 people who bought this specific tent, 3,000 also bought these specific steaks.
Exactly. So if a store has a small catalog, say under 100 to 200 SKUs stock keeping units, basically the individual item barcodes and fewer than 1,000 orders a month, an algorithm is essentially a robot throwing darts in the dark.
A robot throwing darts in the dark. I love that.
Yeah, it simply does not have the data density to find meaningful behavioral correlations.
So it might recommend 2 things that make absolutely no sense together, like a winter coat and a bathing suit, just because one person happened to buy them at the same time once.
Yes, the sample size is just too small. In those cases, manual complete-the-look rules drastically outperform AI. Manual rules encode actual human merchandising judgment.
It's kind of like the difference between a boutique tailor and a robot. A human stylist knows inherently that a brown leather belt complements a specific navy suit.
Exactly. An algorithmic tool like Rebuy or Nosto only really earns its really expensive monthly fee when you operate at a scale where a human physically cannot manually map all those thousands of connections anymore.
Which brings up a massive point about financial leaks for a lot of these businesses. I mean, why are store owners paying $200 a month for third-party apps when they don't have the scale to justify it?
It's a great question, especially because in 2026, Shopify gives away an incredible amount of functionality natively for free.
The guide is super explicit about this too. Like the Shopify Search and Discovery app handles related products on the product page perfectly well. The native Shopify Bundles app handles fixed component bundles for free. And they even have native AI tools now, like Shopify Magic and Sidekick, which can auto-generate product recommendation blocks using the store's own secure order history.
The overarching procedural takeaway here is conservative but smart. Start native.
Right?
Exhaust every single tool the platform gives you for free. Prove that your customers actually want to buy complementary items first, and only then pay for an app to fill in a specific missing placement, like a specialized cart drawer.
Okay, so let's say our store owner follows the playbook. The app is installed, the manual rules are running beautifully, the owner logs into their new app dashboard, and they see this massive, beautiful spike in revenue. Success, right?
You'd think so.
Well, here's where it gets really interesting. The biggest trap highlighted in the entire source is this app dashboard's lie.
It is the great illusion of e-commerce software. You really have to remember that dashboards are essentially marketing tools designed to justify the app's own monthly subscription fee.
Right, they want you to keep paying.
Exactly. Let's break down the math of why they are so misleading. Imagine you are the shopper. You come to a site and you decide to buy a $75 dress. On your way to the checkout, the cross-sell module pops up and suggests a $20 belt. You think, sure, why not? And you add the belt.
So my total card is now $95.
Correct. But the app dashboard will often claim that entire $95 as cross-sell revenue simply because the cross-sell module technically touched the order before it was completed.
Are you serious?
Yes. But the incremental revenue, the new money the store made strictly because the app existed, is only $20. You were already going to buy the $75 dress.
That is wild. It's like the waiter taking credit for selling you a $100 steak dinner just because they successfully asked if you wanted a side of fries at the end.
That's a perfect analogy.
By claiming the gross revenue instead of the incremental lift, these apps inflate their own return on investment by 3 to 5 times.
Easily.
So if the dashboard is lying to them, how does an e-commerce founder listening to this actually know if they are making real money?
The only mathematically honest way to measure this is what the source calls a 50-50 holdout split.
Wait, how does that actually work mechanically? Does it just guess who is who?
No. It uses session cookies. For a period of, say, 14 to 28 days, you set up a test that splits your website traffic right down the middle as soon as they land on the homepage. The server basically flips a coin.
Okay.
Heads. The visitor gets placed in the test group, and they see all the shiny cross-sell offers. Tails. They get placed in the holdout group, and they see the clean vanilla site with 0 upsells.
And the cookie ensures that if they come back 3 days later, they stay in their assigned group so their experience is consistent, right?
Exactly. It has to be consistent. So at the end of the month, you just compare the average order value of the 2 groups. That gap is your true, undeniable incremental revenue.
That makes a lot of sense. You just compare A to B.
Yeah.
And there is a statistic in the guide's AOV calculator section that really puts the economics of this into perspective.
The break-even stat, right?
Yeah. Let's say a store is doing 800 orders a month. They install an app that costs $29 a month to sell an $18 add-on item. To completely break even on that app cost, the attach rate they need across those 800 orders is roughly 0.20%.
Which is incredibly low.
Less than 1/4%. That means if just 2 out of 1,000 people buy the add-on, the app pays for itself. The economics are just incredibly forgiving on paper.
They really are. I mean, the software will almost always pay for itself in pure dollar terms.
But that leads to such a profound point in the guide. The question you should be asking isn't, will this app pay for itself? We know it will.
Right.
The real question is the storefront clutter worth it? Like, is the cognitive load you are putting on the other 998 shoppers worth the tiny fraction of a percent who actually buy the add-on?
It forces a really hard conversation about brand equity versus short-term revenue extraction.
Yeah.
If your site starts to feel like a chaotic flea market where pop-ups are begging you to buy more at every click, you might gain a little AOV today, sure.
But at what cost?
Exactly. You are actively eroding the customer's trust and loyalty for tomorrow.
Okay, so our hypothetical store owner is being smart. They ran the 50/50 holdout. The numbers are honest. The incremental revenue easily covers the app fee without annoying the customer too much. They should be popping champagne, right?
Well, not quite yet.
Right, because the source warns that they might still be silently bleeding money on the front end if they aren't careful. There are these subtle mistakes that completely tank a store's conversion rate. And I had a huge aha moment reading this part.
Which part?
The single biggest strategic mistake you can make is recommending same category competitors.
Oh, yes. The classic example is a shopper putting a red dress in their cart, and the cross-sell app immediately pops up showing them 3 other red dresses from the catalog.
It completely splits their intent. This happens to me all the time, actually. I'm ready to pull the trigger, my credit card is out, and suddenly the store gives me homework.
Homework, yeah.
I have to stop and evaluate 3 new options. Did I pick the wrong dress? Is that other one better? It creates analysis paralysis, and usually, honestly, I just get overwhelmed and abandon the cart entirely.
The psychology of the paradox of choice is undeniable there. You must show complements things that go with the item, never substitutes. And alongside that psychological trap, the source dives into several major technical pitfalls.
Yeah, let's talk about the mobile experience, because I have literally abandoned carts because a giant "buy these socks" pop-up shoved the Apple Pay button off the bottom of my phone screen.
And you definitely aren't alone. I mean, over 70% of all e-commerce traffic happens on mobile devices now.
Wow, 70%.
Yeah. So if a store installs a shiny new cross-sell cart drawer and it pushes the actual checkout button below the fold on a standard 5.5-inch phone screen, they've just crippled their business. If people have to scroll or hunt to figure out how to hand you their money, they just won't do it.
The friction is just too high.
Way too high.
And speaking of friction, I imagine page speed has to take a hit too, right? If my phone is trying to load 3 different recommendation widgets, the browser's gonna crawl.
It's a massive issue called JavaScript stacking.
Okay.
Every time a store owner installs one of these third-party apps, the app injects a little snippet of JavaScript into the site's code. The shopper's browser has to physically pause, fetch that script from a remote server, read it, and then execute it before it can finish drawing the checkout button.
That sounds slow.
It is. Having multiple apps running simultaneously can add 400 to 800 milliseconds to page load times.
And in e-commerce, milliseconds literally equal millions, right?
Yeah.
That slight invisible delay quietly costs the store more in abandoned carts than the cross-sell ever gains in AOV. It's like this invisible tax.
It really is. And the final pitfall the guide warns about is over-discounting, specifically with bundles.
Oh, yeah.
Store owners often think they need to slash prices to make a bundle attractive. But the true value of a bundle to the consumer is convenience. You know, getting the camera, the lens, and the memory card in one single click.
Right, I don't want to hunt for all that.
Exactly. So you really only need to offer a 5 to 8% discount. If you offer massive, deep discounts, you simply train your customers to never buy your products at full price, which destroys your long-term profit margins.
And to keep all of this honest, to make sure the store isn't falling victim to these traps, the source emphasizes using Google Analytics for GA4 as an independent auditor.
Yes.
Like, if you are running a store, you need to track specific events in GA4, like cross-sell view, cross-sell click, and cross-all lead.
That is absolutely critical. GA4 tracks the actual click path of the user. By keeping the data verification outside the app, you ensure the app can't grade its own homework, using its own biased cookies. Independent verification is the only way to scale safely.
So what does this all mean? If we boil this incredibly detailed 2026 guide down, it gives us a really tight 8-step playbook.
Let's hear it.
You start by defining your SKUs correctly. You start with just one placement, usually post-purchase because it has zero risk to the main checkout. You use the native free Shopify platform tools first. You absolutely always run a 14-day 50/50 holdout test using session cookies to get honest numbers.
Right.
And you only expand to a second placement or a paid app if your independently verified incremental revenue covers the cost of the app by at least 3 times.
That is the ultimate operational takeaway for anyone running a store. But reading through all these mechanics, the behavioral prediction, the algorithmic targeting, the optimization, if we step back for a second, it raises an important question for me. a broader, almost philosophical one.
Oh, I love when we get to zoom out. What are you thinking?
Well, as machine learning and algorithms get increasingly sophisticated at perfectly predicting exactly what we want,
Hmm.
based purely on our past digital behavior, are e-commerce stores essentially creating a filter bubble for physical goods.
Oh, wow, a filter bubble. Think about it. If we are only ever cross-sold exactly what mathematically matches our past behavior and our demographic profile, are we losing the serendipity of shopping?
Wow.
The pure joy of discovering something completely new, weird, and unexpected, precisely because it wasn't a perfect algorithmic fit.
That is a fascinating thought to leave on. Like, are we engineering the surprise right out of the human experience just to bump up our AOV by 2%? Next time you find yourself scrolling on your phone, clicking add to cart, and a perfectly timed recommendation for a matching belt pops up, ask yourself, is this what I actually wanted to discover today? Or is this just what the algorithm knew my brain couldn't resist? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Look a little closer at your own digital shopping carts this week, and we'll see you next time.